ceasefire in Gaza entered its fifth day after Israeli and Palestinian resistance agreed on two-day extension. Ambassadors of the European Union to Yemen conclude a visit to the interim capital of Aden. The United States says Somali pirates are likely to be behind the attack on the cargo in the Gulf of Aden. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. It is the fifth day of the truce between Israel and the Palestinian resistance. After a 48-hour extension was agreed yesterday, 3 Palestinians will be released from Israeli prisons in exchange for each Israeli hostage returned from Gaza. Meanwhile, the United Nations has used the pause in fighting to get desperately needed aid into Gaza, but says much more is needed. The following report has more.
An Israeli-Hamas ceasefire in the Gaza Strip entered its fifth day as both sides agreed to exchange hostages and Palestinians in prisons for no reason, and they were ready to release more as the two-day ceasefire was extended. On Monday, the White House and Qatari negotiators announced that the first 4-day ceasefire had been extended for an additional 2 days. The announcement to prolong the original 4-day ceasefire, which was set to finish on Monday, came as Netanyahu's government faced rising internal and international pressure to extend the ceasefire. 33 Palestinians were released from Israel's Ofer jail in the occupied West Bank and a detention center in Jerusalem, increasing the total number of Palestinians released by Israel since Friday to 150. According to Palestinian Health Ministry, Israeli soldiers attacked some of the dozens of Palestinians who were waiting outside Ofer jail to demand the release of the prisoners. The ministry stated that a Palestinian man was killed nearby as he was shot dead. More than 15,000 Palestinians have been killed by the IOF in Gaza. U.S. Undersecretary of State Antony Blinken is scheduled to visit Israel, the West Bank, and the United Arab Emirates this week to discuss the continuation of aid to Gaza, according to the U.S. State Department. In Gaza, where there is a shortage of food, fuel, clean water, and medication for the people, more aid trucks were permitted entry during the initial ceasefire agreement. Many Palestinians gathered at the United Nations depot in Khan Yunis, a town in southern Gaza, where hundreds of thousands of people displaced from the north have sought shelter in tents and schools. According to the United Nations, an estimated 1.8 million of the territory's 2.3 million population are internally displaced. Although the ceasefire gave Palestinians some relief, the losses and the suffering are way more than what the ceasefire is offering. The pain still continues, and there must be a permanent ceasefire in Gaza.
European Union ambassadors to Yemen concluded a joint visit to the interim capital of Aden. The meeting reviewed the latest developments in the country in terms of the regional and international efforts to achieve peace. The meeting touched also on developments in the occupied Palestinian territories and the joint positions of Yemen and the EU in calling for extending the humanitarian truce. Attackers who seized the commercial ship in the Gulf of Aden this weekend appear to have been Somali pirates, the Pentagon said on Monday. A U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyer and allied ships belonging to a counter-piracy task force on Sunday responded to a distress call from the crew of the Central Park, which had been boarded by 5 armed individuals, the Pentagon added. More on this story is within this report.
The 5 armed attackers captured by U.S. forces after seizing a commercial ship near Yemen over the weekend were likely Somali and not members of the Houthi rebels, as the Pentagon said. While the Pentagon was still assessing the motives of the latest group, piracy in the region was down, and this was clearly a piracy-related event. Yemen's government in Aden has accused the Houthi rebels of attacking the MV Central Park in the Gulf of Aden on Sunday. The Liberian flag tanker managed by Zodiac Maritime sent out a distress call and forces from the USS Mason. The 5 attackers attempted to flee in their small boats, but the U.S. forces pursued them and fired warning shots, resulting in their eventual surrender. However, little over 90 minutes later, 2 ballistic missiles fired from Houthi-controlled Yemen landed about 10 nautical miles from the Mason. The U.S. destroyer didn't engage or try to intercept the missiles because they were not deemed a threat and splashed into the water. Ballistic missiles had been fired shortly after from the Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen, and the Pentagon has not ruled out that the Houthis were somehow linked to the Somali-conducted attack. The attacks on commercial vessels have previously been conducted by Houthis and are part of a larger rise in violence in the region due to the Israel war. They said it was not still clear whether the ballistic missiles were aiming for the Mason, and there were 3 Chinese vessels in the area at the time, but they didn't respond to the Central Park's distress call. The Chinese government has not acknowledged whether it had ships in the area at the time of the attack. According to international maritime law, any ship in the vicinity is required to respond to a distress call.
8 people were killed and others injured in armed clashes in the Beit al-Faqih district north of Hodeidah. Local sources said that armed clashes broke out in front of the security department following a dispute over land and resulted in the killing of 5 people and the injury of others. The sources explained that the 2 disputed parties were in the security department seeking a peaceful reconciliation of the dispute when one party started to open fire and led to the very tragic accident. Now turning to Ma'rib, where 1 child was reported to be killed in Houthi artillery shelling. Local sources in Harib district confirmed the child was hit by shrapnel from Houthi projectiles, which caused his death at once. This comes in light of the escalation and widespread Houthi violations that affected many populated areas in the city. Recent national statistics showed that about half of the children in Yemen suffer from chronic malnutrition. According to the Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey, 49% of children under 5 in Yemen are malnourished. The survey indicated also that 75% of households faced a state of food insecurity during the past 12 months. A government survey in Yemen found that half of the children in Yemen is out of school, despite slight improvements in child mortality and access to water and sanitation. The survey showed marginal improvement in areas like health, nutrition, education, and water. This report has more.
Half of the country's children are not enrolled in school, and half of those enrolled are dropping out of basic and secondary education, according to the first government survey conducted in Yemen since the beginning of the war sparked by the Houthis. However, the survey showed a slight improvement in the child mortality rate and access to drinking water and sanitation services. The Yemeni Central Bureau of Statistics, in cooperation with the United Nations, conducted the Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey, which focused on assessing the living conditions of women, girls, and boys for the purpose of directing policies, programs, and national and international development plans. The survey data indicated that only half of the children of school age were enrolled in the first grade of primary school, while the school completion rate in the basic stage was only 53% and 37% in the secondary stage. UNICEF supported the survey, measuring progress made in vital areas of human development, including health, nutrition, education, water, and sanitation. The results showed marginal improvement in many areas over the past decade, which is a sign that humanitarian aid has helped maintain people's livelihoods despite the conflict that has devastated the economy and shattered the social order. The UNICEF representative in Yemen stressed that high-quality data is vital for effective planning and setting priorities to enhance efforts towards humanity, peace, recovery, and development. The survey covered about 2,000 families and provided technical support for the survey, which was implemented between July 2022 and May 2023.
Coming next. Tuberculosis plagues residents of Maghreb Governorate.
Sea tortoises in Yemen are prone to extinction, with 90% of them are female. The severe gender imbalance will continue until it brings about the complete loss of sea tortoises in Yemen.
لا ضعيف الذكور وخاصة في الفترة الأخيرة هذه يعني قبل هذا شهر يناير هذا تحصل أكثر شيء ميتين الذكور على الشواطئ من الوسط هذا يعني مليان الذكور ميتين يعني كثير يعني باليوم نحصل 10 حبات 15 حبة مليان منهم يعني وخفوا بالكثير ما شيء زي أول لأن أول كان تحصل لهم مخلوطين الذكر والأنثى الآن أكثر شيء الإناث.
هناك دراسات عملت في كثير من المناطق الساحلية في المنطقة الاستوائية وأثبتت ارتفاع نسبة الإناث مقارنة بالذكور لتصل حتى إلى نسبة أكثر من 90% من نسبة الفاقسات، وبالتالي سيعرض نسبة الذكور بشكل عام إلى التناقص وربما خلال أعوام قادمة إلى الانقراض للذكور من السلاحف البحرية.
Welcome back. Tuberculosis is a major public health issue in Yemen, while the situation of the disease has been further exacerbated since the war started in 2015. This report has more.
Tuberculosis is widely spread in Maghreb as infections reached about 148 people during the past few weeks. This comes at a time when the governorate is suffering from outbreaks of other diseases such as cholera and fever. The health office is trying to limit the spread of this disease by establishing specialized units and provides specialized equipment as much as possible in light of the obstacles facing the health sector in the governorate.
يوجد معنا في محافظة مأرب الحمد لله.
In Maghreb, there are a number of hospitals that provide treatment for tuberculosis. The cases have increased in Maghreb due to the displacement of people and the environment they live in. Here in the health office, we are trying our best to find a solution to that.
This health facility in the city receives the number of people infected with tuberculosis daily, in addition to other diseases including cholera and fevers. Since October until now, there have been 148 cases of this disease, which raises citizens' concern about its spread.
There are more than 140 cases in 2 months. The positive cases are 15 to 16, which is considered a large number. Tuberculosis is spreading widely due to overcrowded population and the African migrants.
People's lives and health remain dependent on the extent to which good health services are provided to citizens. Diseases and epidemics are easily spread, which now threatens people's lives and their health.
One Yemeni researcher revealed that an archaeological tomb was transported from Egypt to France. The researcher explained that a former security officer reported that the archaeological tomb was transported overland from Egypt to Shabwa. He said that the tomb's stone remained away from the grave of its owner until forces affiliated with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security recovered it. Banking sources revealed that the Houthi militia deducted money from received money exchanges conducted in hard currency. The sources said that the Houthi militia deducted no less than $16 from every $1,000 and also forced the beneficiaries to receive their transfers. The sources pointed out that the central bank in Sana'a, which is controlled by the Houthis, forces beneficiaries of external remittances to deduct $16 for every $1,000. In Taiz, ancient crafts are still present and the elders still cling to them as a primary source of income. Thabit Salim comes from Mawza district and is one of those elderly men who has been working in making traditional wooden beds for decades. More on Thabit's story is within this report.
The elderly still work in rural regions making antique wooden beds, which is a historic trade that has persisted through human history. The rural Wadi Al-Aqma region in Al-Mawza district uses a multifaceted approach to reach customers in the rural areas west of Taiz, despite the process of preparation appearing to be difficult at first.
I cut down trees in remote areas and carry the wood on my back to bring it here. Then I go back to buy ropes and install the wooden beds, but the price is not worth the effort. But what can we do? There is no work other than this. Thanks God anyways. This is my only job, which I inherited from my father, who has worked in it for 40 years. I make popular wooden beds, ploughing and mash plants machines for bulls and camels. It's a difficult job, but what can we do? Living is expensive in light of the current economic situation.
The 60-year-old man has numerous challenges in his quest for a livelihood, working in a field that could not provide the profits he anticipates due to excessive costs. Despite the recent development in this field, this industry still has clients in rural regions.
People still ask for this type of furniture despite the presence of modern ones. I design the furniture and deliver it to the addresses of the buyers. Thanks God for this source of living.
Thabit Salim has supported himself with the carpentry of wooden beds since the 1970s, when he also worked with agriculture equipment. He still holds on it until now, having gotten it from his father, as it's the only thing that can lift him out of poverty.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Ceasefire in Gaza enters the 5th day after Israeli and Palestinian resistance agreed on two-day extension. Ambassadors of the European Union to Yemen conclude the visit to the interim capital of Aden. The United States says Somali pirates are likely to be behind the attack on the cargo in the Gulf of Aden. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.